O'clock. We'll go ahead and get things started. Welcome everyone to the Cindy Timchal Navy Women's Lacrosse Weekly Media Zoom. We'll start off with Bill Wagner this week.
Well, obviously, Coach, a big game on Saturday. Can you talk about Army and what you've begun the scouting process? What are you seeing in Army?
Uh, well, yeah. Um, our Army's very strong, led by a couple key offensive players, great draw taker, solid goaltending. Um, yeah, it's always going to be an exciting game, no matter what sport we're in at Navy. To play the Army Navy game is actually a privilege and exciting moment for our team. Um, yeah, we're going to have our hands full. We have to be well prepared and focused and locked in to compete with Army.
Can you talk about some of their key players who you have to stop in terms of defending them?
Uh well, yeah. Allison Riley, she's a lefty attacker, and Bridget Duffy, who's on the national team. They both bring a lot of offense, a lot of intensity, a lot of ground balls, cause turnovers, draw controls. So, um, you know, that's where you start. And then, collectively a good team, offense, defense. Um, that's what we're really focusing on. But for the most part, really just focusing on Navy. Um, is a critical piece of that is getting our sets cleared and being as prepared as possible.
In terms of the Patriot League tournament, obviously this is a big game in terms of seeding. I believe Loyola's already beaten you and Army, so they're in the driver's seat. But obviously, you'd like to be the second seed if all possible. Is that something you think about or no?
No, that would be a lot on a team to think about. I think we just really think about what's in our critical path, which is our next game, which is up at Army. Um, yeah, this is, where we are, that this, obviously, like you mentioned, the standings, are important. Um, but we really need to, for Navy, just, really focus on playing Navy women's lacrosse and and see what happens, at the, when the whistle starts the game and at the end. So
Scott Strassmeyer, you got anything?
Cindy, what did you know about the Army Navy rivalry before you came to Navy? And then how has that changed after experiencing the Army Navy rivalry?
Oh, well, yeah, everybody in the whole country and the whole wide world knows about the Army Navy football game. But, and again, coming to Navy and being the first service academy to, elevate a women's lacrosse at the Division I level, by Chet Gladchuk, and the idea that, we could compete at the highest level with our location and the ability to recruit top players to, a wonderful institution like the United States Naval Academy. I never quite understood what the other sports and the meaning of that initially. I remember Cooksey, our former track coach, kind of, we were office mates and really expressed the intensity of that game, and then witnessing it when soccer's have played and baseball. And yeah, once we were excited once Army made that decision to also add women's lacrosse, that we would have that same opportunity that other team sports have, to have this wonderful N-Star Navy Army um, uh, competition. It's exciting. The players get excited. There's a lot of focus, not on just Army and Navy, but also the idea of women's lacrosse and how that can elevate our sport too, and each program.
My second question is prior to COVID, we played these as double headers, and then during COVID, they got separated for health and safety reasons, and they've stayed separated. Do you miss the double headers, or do you like being the two single games at different locations and being the focus there?
Yeah, it was. It's definitely has excitement all around to have the doubleheader. I believe you have a similar thing with the basketball, men's and women's, and certainly we enjoyed it when it first started. And like you said, with COVID, we're now on two. We're playing on the same day, but home and away. And yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people would like to be there together for the whole big competition, and I totally get that. I don't really have a feeling either way. Maybe sometime we'll get back to it. I know that many sports and a lot of conferences always toy around with having a doubleheader with the men, maybe not in different sports, and in particular men's and women's lacrosse. We'll see. We'll see how this weekend goes, and maybe sometime we can entertain that idea of having that doubleheader.
I guess the hard part is someone's going to have to volunteer to play on the road 2 years in a row to make that happen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No way. Yeah, that's the hard part. I get that, Scott.
Yeah. Wags.
Cindy, I was going to ask about Ava Yavino. She hasn't quite been as potent a scorer as she was before the injury. Is she still, kind of coming back, if you will, still not quite at 100%?
She's 100% athletically, her mindset. She's a total team player. She recognizes players that are hot, ways she can set up teammates. She's also been an incredible, full-time midfielder for us. And she really takes pride in her defense. I think we elevated that a little bit when we played Holy Cross this past weekend at home. And, Ava just takes parts of the game, tries to elevate a little bit here and there. Yeah. I mean, she is a big part of what we've been able to do this year. It maybe hasn't expressed itself perhaps in that, score column. But she's doing things that maybe a lot of times you just don't get credit for. That all around thing. I think Maggie does the same similar thing as one of our other midfielders. But just proud of what Ava has accomplished and what she's doing for our team and her mindset. And just a really, really great, midshipman, lacrosse player and teammate. It's fun to coach.
Mike, do you have anything else?
Last question for me would be, can you talk about the defense? Obviously, they were outstanding against Holy Cross. I mean, it just seems like you got a really well-connected unit there.
Yeah, we strive to get a little bit stronger each practice and going into the matchups of the next game. Obviously, it took notice that I think Holy Cross was averaging a lot of goals and had 21-3 victory over American. So we felt and a couple key returning players, 20, 21, 11 hurt us a little bit. But we were very, very locked into the idea that in order to be successful against Holy Cross, we had to really lock it in offensively. And they got their goals, and they got them because they earned them, and certainly because it's a unit that's played together for quite a while, and they just do the little things really well. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, Bill, that the opportunity for us to just, combine and get stronger as a defensive unit is something that we really do aspire to.
Is there any one of those defenders that you trust the most if you have to mark out a really top scorer like the Army player you were talking about?
Yeah. Well, we have several. It's hard to pick out one. I think if you notice someone like, Jacqueline Johnson, she's one of our matchup defenders, tremendous, foot speed, and just a real true defensive mindset. So she would be one. Jalen Jenkins has been a matchup player. Obviously, Grace Peterson not only brings good matchups, good sliding packages, but also great speed and clearing and helping that whole defensive unit and is, you know, one of the most experienced players in our defense, being one of the few seniors that are playing back on D.
All right, I'm all good. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Bill. Thanks for tuning in.
I
Guys,
think
anything else?
I think Cindy misspoke. She meant Jacqueline Johns.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
No,
Jacqueline
that's
Johns.
okay.
I know.
Um, was it good this past weekend? Holy Cross doubled Emily a lot, Messinese,
Yeah.
and I see Maggie DeFabio step up and have such a great offensive game. I guess one was great to see someone else take on that scoring load, and two, Emily never forced anything. She they doubled her, and she never forced the offense. She let other people score.
Yeah, that again, I mean, if it just every time we had a timeout break, a quarter break, halftime, she's really leading that offense, Scott, and she's really she's trying to set up her teammates. And that was really effective. And she communicated that well. We had her in different places to be the most effective. And she also, could pop up, get the ball. They sent an early double or slide to her. So, and we were trying to get more of that kind of double slide, double look, zip, look. And we've been working on this week. We expect similar that, Army may or may not make that decision with Emily or any of our other players, but you have to effectively, kind of work around that. I never knew they would do it in NBA, but I remember a couple years ago when Stephen Curry was face guarded when they did win the world championship, and he just never stopped running. He was all over the place. They just didn't realize they did it in the NBA. But we're working on different options too if that happens again to her, whether it's at Army or up at Lehigh or whatever for the future games. We're prepared.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coach, Scott kind of touched on it a little bit, but Maggie DeFabio had a breakout game against Holy Cross this last weekend. Similar to Ava, she's a full-time midi. What has she meant to the team?
Again, I think you see when we go back and look at we call them get better videos. She's the one doing a takeaway, picking up that extra scrap, ground ball, getting back on D. I kind of had a little conversation when there was a little mix up when Holy Cross had her first goal. And she looked at me, she goes, I have this coach. And she went back in, and had a day. She just responds to challenges. Her potential, I know you hate to use that word potential, but she does things on the field that you don't expect. And unselfishly, if she's given the opportunity, she'll take it, but she's really looking to set up her teammates too. So I loved that not only Mess helped to set her up, but the whole team did when giving that space and opportunity that she took it, with speed and was able to finish on some of those situations. That's Maggie's, it's just, again, just a wonderful midfielder, somebody that, does things that maybe we all don't, see or talk about, maybe see it during the game, after the game, we look on, but she had one heck of a game. And I think that's just the beginning for Maggie. I think she's, that just ignited her for the rest of the season.
All right. Thank you so much, Coach.
Thank you.
Not seeing any more questions. We'll go ahead and end this. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing everyone next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott.
Army.